So let's talk about the application process. So here's the timeline. When a student is a senior in high school, they're really getting ready to think about what colleges they're going to apply to. So you're on those admissions websites and you're making note of deadlines and what's needed for each application. Also make note of what the financial aid deadlines are and what's needed for the financial aid application. Those deadlines are usually close to the admissions deadlines, but sometimes not exactly. They could be a week later, 2 weeks later, something like that. So it's very important to meet all deadlines. MEFA has what's called a college application manager on our website that you can download if you want to use that to stay organized, or you could just create a spreadsheet of your own where you keep track of the colleges you want to apply to and the admissions deadlines, the financial aid deadlines, and all of the materials that are needed for each. So the main financial aid application form is called the FAFSA. It's the free application for federal student aid, and it's required by all colleges to be able to receive any federal financial aid. And so most colleges use that as the main financial aid application. And you must complete the FAFSA every year. It's an online form. There is a paper version, but it's so much easier online. You go to fafsa.gov. Normally, it's available October 1st of a student's senior year. But this year, there have been a number of changes being made to the FAFSA and the systems. And so because of all of that change, it's taking longer for the federal government to be all set and ready. And so the FAFSA is not going to be available until December this year. We don't have an exact date, but it will be available in December. However, there are some things you can do in advance, and I highly advise that. So in order to complete the FAFSA, you need what's called an FSA ID, and that is a username and password. And you need that for everyone whose information is going to be on the FAFSA. So that's something that you could do now as a student and a parent, and you need an email address to be able to set that up. So you can do that now anytime, and that will make it nice and easy when the FAFSA is available for you to go right in and complete the form. Now, in more detail, who needs an FSA ID? The student always. The student's spouse, if the student is married and filed taxes separately or didn't file. Every parent who's listed on the FAFSA, except if the parents filed jointly, only one parent needs an FSA ID. And another term you might start to hear is contributor. That's anyone whose information appears on the FAFSA. And the best way to complete the FAFSA with this new FAFSA that's coming out in December is that the student should start and then invite their contributors, and then the contributors, parents mostly, will then complete their section of the FAFSA. And so then the last contributor to submit information can then submit the FAFSA. One thing to note also is that you need to do that all within 45 days. So if a student starts a FAFSA, make sure it all moves along so that the form, you won't have to restart. I will also advise that you attend our Understanding the FAFSA webinar on the MEFA website. You can find that, and that's going to be on December 4th. What's reported on the FAFSA? Well, some general information, student citizenship status. Non-citizen parents will be able to complete this form, and there will be further guidance coming from federal student aid before the FAFSA is available. You put the colleges where the student is applying. Each one will receive your FAFSA. And then parent information, such as are parents married, including same-sex parents, include both, all parents who live together, married or not, divorced or separated parents. The way that works is it's the parent who provides more financial support that needs to put information on the FAFSA. And if that person is remarried, that current spouse also puts information on the FAFSA. If parents provide perfectly equal support, then you should use the parent with the greater income and assets on the FAFSA. As you go through the FAFSA, there's a section that's called Who's My Parent Wizard that will help you figure that out. One thing to note, though, is that legal guardians are not a parent. It will also collect the number in your household. That information is going to come directly from the IRS, but as a family, you can update that. And it will also ask you the number of children in college, but that won't factor into the calculation beginning this year. And then some financial information will be on the FAFSA. It's what they're going to want is if you're applying for the FAFSA this year for the 24-25 academic year, then they're going to be asking about your 2022 income tax return. So the way it works, and this makes it nice and easy, is that when you go to complete the FAFSA, you provide consent to have your federal tax data pulled in from the IRS. And once you do that, that means you complete very few income questions, if any, on the form. So both taxed and untaxed income that appears on your tax return will come right over into the FAFSA. And then assets. You'll also want to put in assets if asked. Some families won't have to complete assets, but if you're asked about them, you want to include the value of savings, checking, investments, and all businesses and farms and other property. You also want to include your 529 accounts, but only those for the student whose FAFSA you're completing. And those will be counted as parent assets, which is very good because they're treated in a very lenient way. Do not include any value of your primary home or your retirement accounts, life insurance, or 529 accounts for other children. Do not include those on the FAFSA. And debt is not reported except for any debt on reported assets. And then, while I mentioned that all colleges will require the FAFSA, some colleges require an additional form called the CSS profile. And those are mostly private colleges and colleges that have a fair amount of scholarship and grant dollars to award to their students. So because they want to be as accurate as possible with making those awards, they sometimes need a little more information than is asked about or reported on the FAFSA. So if the college that you're applying to requires the CSS profile, then you need to complete that form. And you can find that information on the college website, or you can go to the College Board website and go to the CSS profile participating institutions list, and you'll be able to find out if your college needs the CSS profile. And if so, then you need to complete that. That is going to be available October 1st. So it would be a great idea to complete this form in October if you can, and then you'd be ahead of all of the financial aid deadlines. It's important to note that it does cost a fee, $25 for the first college that you send this information to, and $16 for each additional college. However, if your family income is $100,000 or less, or you meet other criteria, you can waive the cost of the CSS profile. With the CSS profile, sometimes a college will ask for the other parent. If in a divorced or separated situation, they will ask for the other parent to also complete a profile, so that they just have a wide range of information for the student as they're making a determination for a financial aid offer. MEFA also has a What to Know About the CSS Profile webinar. So you can always go to mefa.org/events to look into any of the other webinars that MEFA holds. And once in a while, a college will have their own financial aid application. So it's a good idea when you're looking at the websites just to make sure you don't miss that if there is one available. Then what happens after you apply? The colleges and the state receive your data electronically. And then the student will receive a FAFSA submission summary, an FSS, by mail. So also be aware that colleges may request mandatory federal verification documents. So there might be some back and forth as the colleges are reviewing your data, and they may ask you some questions. And if they do, just make sure you stay on top of that and get what's needed to the financial aid office. And then the colleges will go through all of that material and make a financial aid offer based on the information. Know that this year, with the odd timing of the FAFSA not being available until December, if a student applies to one of the early application programs like early decision or early action, that some schools may release some estimated awards ahead of time. And some may hold off and wait until the FAFSA is in. So make sure you also talk to the colleges this year about each school's timing and when they will be, giving their financial aid offers and when they will be complete, because you might want to wait. You might get a merit award at first, and you have to wait a little bit further for your federal financial aid. So you want to know when you have your complete award. But what's key to know is you will not have to commit to a college without a financial aid offer in hand. And I mentioned that there's a process called verification. So colleges do need to verify a certain number of applications. So just be aware of this and know that it's just part of the process. If a college reaches out to you and asks for a tax return transcript, a verification worksheet, asset account statements, and make sure you follow up on any requests like that. And the financial aid office, once you've applied to a college and applied for financial aid, the financial aid office becomes a great resource for you. So you can ask them questions about financial aid renewability criteria. You can ask how a private outside scholarship will affect your financial aid. Also, if you have changing family circumstances from the time you first complete your FAFSA until the time you are accepting the offer or attending college, if things have changed in your financial situation, you should always call the financial aid office and let them know of any changes so that they can also look at your financial aid offer and make sure that it's the best that they can do. And if you want to appeal, you can find out how to do that with the financial aid office. Financial aid offices will have different ways they want to be in touch with you. Some you can call, you can email, sometimes they have a chat feature. So on the college website, it should tell you the best way to get in touch with the financial aid office.